Everyone, welcome to episode 3 of my journey to a live set in October, which is now only a few weeks away. Apologies for the gap between episode 2 and 3. I was a bit ill and wasn't really up for doing a video, but I've been working away in the background anyway, trying to get ready for the set. Today's just a quick video where I'm going to show you how I go from composing a track to mixing it down and then preparing it for the live sets, setting up all the loops and all the rest of that. In my next video, I'll probably do a little bit of a deeper demo as well, so give you a bit of an experience in how it works, but obviously come down on the day, that'll be better. So yeah, I'm gonna dive into my Logic session to show you that, but before I do, just a quick shout out to Keaton, who gave me a bit of a heads up after my last video where I was literally filming the screen. Gave me some advice. Turns out I actually had all the kit anyway. We generally use OBS Studio when we do live streaming, but didn't quite realize I could just do screen captures as well. So it looks slightly more professional this time. Not too sure about the content though. But yeah, shout out to Keaton, aka Grimehouse. Yeah, I'll post some links to his socials in the comments below. Really great DJ, one of South Africa's best electronic producers, and quite a funny guy as well. So yeah, I'll post some links to his socials in the comments of this video. Okay, so let's dive into Logic, and I'll give you a quick run through of how I go from a composing type project to mixing down and then exporting it all into live loops. Okay, so what we're looking at here is my project where I actually write the track. As you can see, it's one of my upcoming releases, my debut release on the new MioAs label under my Adian alias, and it's called Fragments of You and Me. Should hopefully be available just before the event, all things going well. But yeah, so this is how I write a track. What you're looking at in here is a sort of a cut down version. So let me just open up some of these things. I've created these track stacks where I can group types of instrumentation and parts of the project together. It's just, for organization, because I'm a bit weird like that, but also you can, apply bus processing on groups of stuff, so it sounds a little bit more cohesive. So I've got all the drum parts in this section, which is claps, snares, your hi-hats and perk. I've got then quite a bit happening in the bass line, so I've got various bass lines in the track, so it builds it up and it stacks parts together. I've got all my synth parts, which will be stabs, lead lines, arpeggios, all of those sorts of things. And then I separate out the pads as well, generally to give them a little bit more width in the mix and things like that. And then finally, the last two bits are there's a vocal part to this track, and then also all the various effects, rises and stuff. So the project itself is made up of MIDI parts, and then which triggers soft synth, so the synth sounds, and also samples and loops and stuff, and things that I've created in the past. So it's a mixture of audio parts and then MIDI and soft synth parts as well. I'm just going to play a little bit of it so you can get an idea. So this is as it kicks in. I don't want to give away too much of it, obviously, because it's coming out in a few weeks' time. Go out and buy it or stream it. Please, that'll help me out. Yeah, let's just flick through a little bit. Yeah, I don't want to give away too much of the tune, although there is a bit of a preview circulating that I've posted a few weeks ago. Hopefully you like it. But anyway, so this is the composing and the writing of the track. What I'm going to do now is I'll switch to the project where I'll show you how I mix down. I like to separate out the stages because it kind of gives me a bit of a mental break between the core components of writing, producing, and mixing down a track. So let's just stop this and then switch over to the project where I show you how to do the mix down. Right, okay, so this is the mixdown project. Same track that I showed previously, Fragments of You and Me. So what I do, as I mentioned in the previous section, I write the track in a project. Then what I will do is take off all of the effects, everything that I've used as part of the writing process, Then I'll bounce each one of those tracks down as an audio file. And what we can see here is very similar to where I laid out my projects. I've grouped all of the drums together. I've grouped all of the bass lines together, the synths and pad sounds, the vocal part, and then also the effects. So again, same principle. I can apply processing to each one of those groups in its entirety. Just gives it a bit more of a cohesive sound. And then I've got some processing, to give it a fuller sound. So I've got sends and things like that where I can, beef up like the the mids as in, the stuff that's in the mono part of a track, and then the sides, which just gives you that more a wider stereo field, and I can bring that up so it just sounds a bit wider as well. I also use reference tracks as well to try and get the mix sounding as close to my favorite progressive house tracks or whatever it is, just so that it gives you something good to reference. I don't do the mastering myself. I have been and I will send the tracks that I'm going to be commercially releasing to a mastering engineer. You can just hear the difference. So anyway, so yeah, so there we go. This is the mix down. So let me just play a few parts, try and figure out similar sections that I played the last time around. There we go. So I think it's probably about the same area that I kicked in the other project. Yeah, so what I do is when I bounce out the tracks from the writing project, take off all of the effects, bounce them out as raw audio files, which I then import into the mix project. I've got a basic template set up for mixing, so I don't have to start from scratch every time. But again, I group things into buses, and I can create processing to make things sound more cohesive. I've got some other sort of tricks that I've learned along the way, how to give it a little bit more of a stereo width, apply that processing as well. Okay, so as you've just seen, so that's the mix down. Now to prep it for the live loops, what I've decided to do is bounce down groups of things. So I'll bounce down some of the drum parts, but remember, most of that's going to be coming from the TR-8S, so that's going to be live. I may bounce down some of the percussion, or maybe the shakers, just to give it that extra bit if there's something very specific in the drums that I want in the track. I will bounce down the bass as one audio file. I may do 3 or 4 bounces of some of the synth parts. I am going to be playing some of it live, and then obviously the vocals, the effects as well. So what I do is I break them down into sections, because as you'll see in live loops, it is essentially a loop-based project. So I'll either bounce down a section that is, let me find a loop bit here, that is either a 16 bar loop, or sometimes even 32, just depends on the section of the song. So I'll bounce down, as you can see, if I select that, what will happen is if I export this, all I will get is the bass line and for 32 bars. So that's a loop that I've created and that I can use or reuse, or in different ways. And then I'll go through a process of moving it along. I might decide, okay, well, I only need 16 bars for this section, and just bounce maybe just very specific parts of the synths, and then I'll create a loop like that. And then you'll see how that then gets imported into the live loops project in Logic, which I will show you next. Okay, so this is my live loops project that I'm going to be using on the day. As you can see, I've got loads in here already. These are the tracks. There's about 12 or 13 in there already, and I'm still adding by the day. But let's just find the one we were talking about, the fragments. Here we go. So this is essentially the project, or the track that I'm going to be using, and all the loops for playing this particular track live on the day. You'll remember I spoke a bit about how I organize things, or how Logic organizes things. So the horizontal lines are basically tracks, and it's a way for you to organize things. So for example, for every single track or song that I'm going to be playing, all the baseline loops are on one track, and again I can apply processing to it. All of the synths on one line, all the vocals on one track, effects, so on and so forth. And what I've also then done is I've created an additional track which is going to takes the input from the TR8S, as I demonstrated in my previous video. But then also I'm building out tracks where I will be playing live parts. So in this example, I've already got a piano loaded up and a lead synth. There'll probably be several of these tracks, so depending on which song and which lead parts I'm going to be playing live on the day. So each one of these blocks is a cell, and that's a loop. So if you remember, in the previous section, I said I'll either take a 16 bar loop or a 32 bar loop, or may even be a 1 bar loop, as it's a drop or something like that in the song. I then bounce it down and I import it into the live loop session. And if you remember from our very first video, I explained the basic layout. A vertical line is a complete scene. So if I trigger, let's just trigger this scene here. It will play all of those parts that I've got in that scene, and then I can do the live keyboards over it, and also you'll have the drum machine running in the background, which I haven't got hooked up in the session at the moment. But yeah, I can play parts, and as you can see, it's looping its way through. There's a little sort of a clock face kind of countdown of the loop. This I think is probably looks like about an 8 bar loop. And then as it gets ready, I need to then trigger the next loop, and it'll play that loop. What you can also do is you can decide, well, actually I don't want to play the vocal anymore, or I can take the synth lines out and stop that. I could probably, and in some tracks I kind of remix on the fly. I can bounce from section to section, but I can also play parts in a different order. If I think that there's a specific groove that's working on the dance floor, then I'll just trigger that. So that's essentially how the live loops work. I've got a basic sequence of tracks that I want to play, but I can jump around in here depending on the vibe of the day. Obviously I can only play the tracks that I've got in the live loop project, so I'll probably have more tracks in here than what I probably need on the day. So again, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so that's essentially how it works. I can also change the tempo. At the moment it's set to 124 beats a minute, but if I see it needs a bit more driving, I can actually pump it a little bit more, as you would do with this CDJs or vinyl. I can change the tempo, because all of this is audio based loops, yeah, so it sort of time stretches in times with the BPMs. The only tricky bit is I may have to do some calculations in my head if I'm playing a live part, because if I pitch something up or down, the key of the song will change. So I'm going to have to be wary of that. I may figure out a way to do in-ear monitoring, so I can play along a line to a track just to make sure I've got the right key for it as well. So that's going to be another interesting dimension to playing live. So there you have it. That is how I'm going to be playing live on the day. So you would have seen I've went all the way from the project that I created to write the song, how I mixed it down, and then how I've imported it into a live set project, and the section that is the song that I'm going to be playing, that fragments there, and you saw how it was made up of the different cells and the sections. So that's it. I think next time I will be demonstrating this live using the drums, playing a lead sound as well. I'll figure out how I do that. You probably don't want to see my face while I'm doing that, so I'll probably just be focusing on the Logic project and do a quick recording of that. And then then it's almost time for the event itself. So I'll probably do a video for setting up the day, maybe a few clips of the day, all going well and Logic doesn't crash and it can actually handle all of the processing. Because as you can see, I've got quite a bit happening in here already, and there's still about 2 or 3 tracks that I need to import in here. So again, have no idea how Logic is going to handle all of this, but we'll see. So that's it. I'll see you next time.